The airlock hissed open, releasing a faint puff of sterile-smelling air into the corridor. Alex stepped through, their boots clanging against the metallic floor of the Starweaver, a ship that felt more like a floating menagerie than a diplomatic vessel. The crew, tall, spindly Zorathians with iridescent skin, hulking Krellians whose scales shimmered like molten bronze, and a trio of diminutive, chittering kicks, turned their collective gaze toward the newcomer. Alex, the token human, had arrived. "Welcome aboard," said Captain Valen, a Zorathian whose voice carried the faint echo of a wind chime. Her elongated fingers gestured toward the group. "This is your crew. You'll find we're a diverse bunch." Her tone was polite, but her multifaceted eyes betrayed a flicker of curiosity. Alex was used to that look. Humans were rare in this corner of the galaxy, and their reputation, equal parts fascination and bafflement, preceded them. "Thanks," Alex said, offering a smile that felt too wide in the presence of so many stoic faces. "Looking forward to working with you all." The Kicks chittered among themselves, their antennae twitching as they exchanged what Alex could only assume were unflattering observations. The Krellians, meanwhile, grunted in unison, their massive arms crossed over their chests. Alex resisted the urge to adjust their uniform. It was going to be a long mission. The Starweaver was en route to the Lyra system, where two warring factions, the crystalline Lithar and the amphibious Vin, had been locked in a bitter conflict for decades. The Galactic Accord had sent the ship to mediate, and Alex, as the sole human representative, was expected to bring a unique perspective to the negotiations. What that meant exactly, no one had bothered to explain. Alex had a sneaking suspicion it had more to do with humanity's reputation for stubborn optimism than any actual diplomatic skill. As the ship hurtled through the void, Alex tried to settle into the rhythm of life aboard the Starweaver. It wasn't easy. The Zorathians communicated in a series of melodic hums and clicks, which Alex's translator struggled to interpret. The Krellians, for their part, seemed content to communicate in monosyllabic grunts and the occasional glare. Only the Kicks showed any real interest in Alex, though their fascination seemed to stem more from a desire to study the human's soft, squishy exterior than any genuine camaraderie. "Do you require sustenance?" one of the Kicks asked during Alex's first meal in the mess hall. The tiny alien peered up at Alex with bulbous, unblinking eyes. "We have synthesized nutrient paste. It is adequate." Alex eyed the gelatinous green blob on their tray. Thanks. I'll stick with the rations I brought." They pulled a protein bar from their pocket, unwrapping it with a flourish. The Kicks watched in rapt attention as Alex took a bite. "Fascinating," the Kicks murmured. "You consume solid matter. How primitive." Alex chuckled, though the sound seemed to startle the Kicks, who skittered backward. "Yeah, we humans are a bit old-fashioned like that." They took another bite, savoring the faint taste of chocolate. It was a small comfort, but one they clung to as the days stretched into weeks. The crew's initial curiosity about Alex gradually gave way to a kind of bemused tolerance. They marveled at the human's ability to sleep for hours at a time. "Do you not fear predators?" a Zorathian asked, horrified, and laughed, or at least made sounds that Alex interpreted as laughter, when Alex attempted to explain the concept of a high five. But beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of skepticism. What could a single human, with their limited experience and peculiar habits, possibly contribute to a mission of such importance? That question loomed larger as the Starweaver approached the Lyra system. The conflict between the Lithar and the Vin was more complex than Alex had realized. The Lithar, a race of sentient crystals, viewed the Vin as invaders, their amphibious colonies encroaching on sacred Lithar territory. The Vin, in turn, accused the Lithar of hoarding resources and refusing to share the system's abundant energy fields. Both sides had dug in their heels, and the Galactic Accord's previous attempts at mediation had ended in failure. "This is where you come in," Captain Valen said during a briefing in the ship's command center. She gestured to a holographic map of the Lyra system, where red and blue markers denoted the positions of Lithar and Vin forces. "The Accord believes your unique perspective may help bridge the gap between these two factions." Alex frowned. With all due respect, Captain, I'm not sure what I can do that the Accord hasn't already tried. Valen's antennae twitched, a gesture Alex had come to recognize as the Zorathian equivalent of a shrug. You are human. You are unpredictable. Sometimes, unpredictability is what is needed. Alex wasn't sure whether to feel flattered or insulted. They decided on a mix of both. The first meeting with the Lithar and Vin representatives took place in a neutral zone aboard a derelict space station. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with the acrid scent of Lithar pheromones and the damp musk of the Vin. Alex stood between Captain Valen and a Krellian security officer, feeling distinctly out of place. The Lithar spokesperson, a towering crystal being whose facets refracted the light in dazzling patterns, spoke first. We demand the immediate withdrawal of all Vin forces from our sacred territories. Anything less is an affront to our very existence. The Vin representative, a sleek, amphibious creature with gills that flared with each word, countered with equal vehemence. Your sacred territories are rich in resources that could sustain our people for generations. You hoard them while we suffer. This is unacceptable. Alex listened, their mind racing. The arguments were familiar, the same grievances repeated ad nauseum in every conflict. But there was something else, something beneath the surface. Both sides were afraid of losing what they held dear, afraid of being erased. It was a fear Alex understood all too well. When it was their turn to speak, Alex stepped forward, their heart pounding. I'm not here to take sides, they began, their voice steady despite the knot in their stomach. I'm here to listen, to understand, because I think, deep down, we all want the same thing, to protect what matters to us. The Lithar and Vin representatives exchanged wary glances. And what do you suggest, human? The Lithar spokesperson asked, their tone dripping with skepticism. Captain Valen stepped forward, her antennae twitching with what Alex hoped was approval. We will reconvene tomorrow, she said. In the meantime, consider the humans' words. They may hold the key to a solution we have yet to imagine. As the meeting adjourned, Alex felt a surge of cautious optimism. They had no idea if their story would make a difference, but it was a start. And sometimes that was all you needed. The section ends with Alex returning to the Starweaver, the weight of the mission heavy on their shoulders, but a spark of determination burning in their chest. The crew, once skeptical, now regarded Alex with a newfound respect. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Alex felt like they might actually belong. The Starweaver hummed softly as it orbited the derelict space station, its engines a low, steady thrum that reverberated through the ship's corridors. Alex sat in the mess hall, staring at the half-eaten protein bar in their hand. The taste of chocolate, once a small comfort, now felt bland and unappetizing. Their mind was elsewhere, replaying the meeting with the Lithar and Vin representatives. The glimmer of hope they'd seen in the aliens' eyes had been fleeting, but it was enough to keep them going. Still, the weight of the mission pressed heavily on their shoulders. Captain Valen entered the mess hall, her iridescent skin catching the dim light. She moved with the grace of someone who had spent a lifetime navigating the complexities of interstellar diplomacy. You did well today, she said, her voice carrying that faint, melodic echo. The Lithar and Vin are not easily swayed, but you gave them something to think about. Alex looked up, surprised. Thanks, Captain. I just hope it's enough. Valen tilted her head, her multifaceted eyes studying Alex with a mixture of curiosity and something else. Respect, perhaps. You underestimate yourself, human. Your species has a way of seeing connections where others see only divisions. It is a rare gift. Alex wasn't sure how to respond. They'd spent most of their life feeling out of place, a lone human in a galaxy that often seemed indifferent to their existence. But here, aboard the Starweaver, they were beginning to feel like they might actually belong. It was a strange, unfamiliar sensation, but not an unwelcome one. The next day, the crew gathered in the command center to prepare for the second round of negotiations. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with anticipation. The Kicks chittered nervously, their antennae twitching as they reviewed the latest data on the Lithar and Vin conflict. The Krellians stood stoically in the corner, their massive arms crossed over their chests. Even Captain Valen seemed on edge, her usually calm demeanor replaced by a quiet intensity. "This is it," she said, addressing the crew. "The Lithar and Vin have agreed to hear our proposal. If we can convince them to accept a temporary ceasefire, it will be a significant step toward peace. But we must tread carefully. One misstep, and this entire mission could fall apart." Alex nodded, their heart pounding. They knew the stakes. The Lithar and Vin had been at war for decades, their hatred for each other deeply ingrained. Convincing them to set aside their differences, even temporarily, would be no small feat, but Alex had an idea, one that had been forming in their minds since the first meeting. It was risky, unorthodox, and almost certainly against protocol. But it might just work. As the crew made their way to the space station, Alex rehearsed their plan in their head. They would need to be persuasive, yes, but more than that, they would need to be genuine. The Lithar and Vin had heard enough empty promises and diplomatic platitudes. What they needed was something real, something that spoke to their shared humanity, or whatever passed for it in their respective cultures. The meeting room was just as tense as it had been the day before. The Lithar and Vin representatives sat on opposite sides of the table, their body language radiating hostility. Alex took a deep breath and stepped forward, their pulse quickening. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us again," they began, their voice steady despite the knot in their stomach. "I know this conflict has caused a great deal of pain and suffering for both of your peoples, but I believe there is a way forward, a way to end the violence and build a future where both the Lithar and the Vin can thrive." The Lithar spokesperson, their crystalline form glinting in the harsh light, leaned forward. "And what human do you propose?" Alex hesitated, then plunged ahead. "I propose a joint project, a collaboration between your two peoples to develop a new energy source that could benefit both of your civilizations. By working together, you could not only resolve the immediate conflict but also create something that would ensure your prosperity for generations to come." The room fell silent. The Vin representative, their gills flaring, narrowed their eyes. "You suggest we work with them? After all they have done? And you suggest we share our resources with them?" The Lithar spokesperson countered, their voice sharp with indignation. Alex held up a hand, silencing the rising tension. "I understand your skepticism. I do. But think about it. This conflict has cost you both so much. Lives, resources, time. What if, instead of continuing to fight, you could use that energy to create something new? Something that would benefit not just your own people, but the entire galaxy." The Lithar and Vin representatives exchanged wary glances. The idea was audacious, perhaps even absurd. But there was something in Alex's words, a sincerity, a conviction, that gave them pause. Captain Valen stepped forward, her antennae twitching with what Alex hoped was approval. "The human speaks wisely. This is an opportunity to break the cycle of violence and build a future based on cooperation, not conflict. Will you not consider it?" The room was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the Lithar spokesperson nodded. "We will consider your proposal. But know this, human. If this is some trick, some ploy to deceive us, the consequences will be severe." Alex nodded, their heart pounding. "I understand. And I promise you, this is no trick. It's a chance, for all of us." The meeting adjourned, the tension in the room palpable but not unyielding. As the crew returned to the Starweaver, Alex felt a surge of cautious optimism. They had no idea if their proposal would be accepted, but it was a start, and sometimes that was all you needed. Back aboard the ship, the crew gathered in the mess hall to debrief. The Kicks chittered excitedly, their antennae twitching as they discussed the day's events. The Krellians, though still stoic, seemed less intimidating than usual. Even Captain Valen allowed herself a small smile. "You did well today, Alex," she said, her voice carrying a note of genuine praise. "You gave them something to think about. That is no small feat." Alex smiled, though their mind was already racing ahead to the next steps. The Lithar and Vin had agreed to consider the proposal, But the real work was just beginning. There would be challenges, setbacks, and no shortage of obstacles. But for the first time, Alex felt like they might actually be making a difference. As the crew dispersed to their respective duties, Alex lingered in the mess hall, staring out the viewport at the stars beyond. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless worlds and civilizations, each with their own struggles and triumphs. But in that moment, Alex felt a strange sense of connection, to the crew, to the Lithar and Vin, and to the countless others who were fighting to build a better future. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Alex felt like they were exactly where they were meant to be. And that, they realized, was enough. The Starweaver drifted in the shadow of the derelict space station, its hull glinting faintly in the starlight. Inside, the crew moved with a sense of purpose, their earlier tension replaced by a cautious optimism. Alex stood in the command center, their gaze fixed on the holographic map of the Lyra system. The Lithar and Vin representatives had agreed to consider the joint energy project. But the real work was just beginning. The fragile hope they'd kindled could easily be extinguished by a single misstep. Captain Valen approached, her iridescent skin catching the soft glow of the hologram. "The Lithar have requested a private meeting," she said, her voice carrying its usual melodic undertone. "They wish to discuss the specifics of the energy project. This is a critical moment, Alex. We must tread carefully." Alex nodded, their mind racing. The Lithar were notoriously secretive, their crystalline society built on layers of tradition and ritual. Convincing them to share their knowledge and their resources would require more than just diplomacy. It would require trust. The meeting took place in a small, dimly lit chamber aboard the space station. The Lithar spokesperson, their multifaceted form refracting the faint light, stood at the center of the room. "We have considered your proposal," they began, their voice resonating with a deep, crystalline timbre. "The idea of collaboration is intriguing, but we have concerns. The Vin are not to be trusted. Their history is one of deceit and exploitation." Alex took a deep breath, choosing their words carefully. "I understand your concerns, but this project isn't just about the Vin. It's about your future, the future of your people. By working together, you could create something that would benefit not just the Lithar, but the entire galaxy. Isn't that worth the risk?" The Lithar spokesperson was silent for a long moment, their crystalline form shimmering as they considered Alex's words. "You speak with conviction, human, but words are not enough. We require proof of your sincerity." Alex hesitated, then reached into their pocket and pulled out a small, worn object, a photograph. It was a picture of Earth, taken from space, its blue and green surface glowing against the black void. "This is my home," they said, holding the photograph out to the Lithar. "It's not perfect. We've made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we've also learned from them. We've learned that cooperation, even with those we don't fully trust, is the only way to build a better future. This project, it's a chance for you to do the same." The Lithar spokesperson took the photograph, their crystalline fingers brushing against the image. For a moment they said nothing. Then slowly they nodded. "We will proceed with the project. But know this, human. If the Vin betray us, the consequences will be severe." Alex exhaled, a wave of relief washing over them. "Thank you. I won't let you down." The next challenge was convincing the Vin. The amphibious species was no less skeptical than the Lithar, their history of conflict with the crystalline race deeply ingrained. Alex met with their representative in a damp, humid chamber that smelled faintly of salt water. The Vin spokesperson, their sleek form glistening in the dim light, regarded Alex with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "The Lithar have agreed to the project," Alex began, their voice steady despite the knot in their stomach. "This is a chance to end the conflict and build something new, something that could benefit both of your peoples." The Vin spokesperson's gills flared as they considered Alex's words. "The Lithar are not to be trusted. They hoard their resources and refuse to share. Why should we believe they will change now?" "Because they have as much to gain as you do," Alex replied. "This project isn't just about energy. It's about proving that cooperation is possible, that even the deepest divisions can be overcome. But it only works if both sides are willing to take that first step. The VIN spokesperson was silent for a long moment, their gills flaring rhythmically as they weighed Alex's words. Finally, they nodded. We will proceed. But if the Lithar betray us, we will not hesitate to defend ourselves. Alex nodded, their heart pounding. Understood. With both sides on board, the project began in earnest. The Lithar provided the raw materials, rare crystals capable of storing vast amounts of energy, while the VIN contributed their expertise in bioengineering, creating a symbiotic system that could harness and distribute the energy efficiently. The process was fraught with tension, each side wary of the other's intentions. But slowly, tentatively, they began to work together. Alex spent their days shuttling between the Lithar and VIN teams, mediating disputes and smoothing over misunderstandings. It was exhausting work, but also deeply rewarding. For the first time, they felt like they were making a real difference, not just as the token human, but as a bridge between two civilizations that had been at odds for far too long. The turning point came during a particularly heated argument over the design of the energy distribution system. The Lithar insisted on a centralized structure, while the VIN favored a decentralized network. The debate threatened to derail the entire project, until Alex stepped in. Why not both? They suggested, their voice cutting through the tension. A hybrid system that combines the strengths of both approaches. It would be more complex, but it could also be more resilient. The Lithar and VIN representatives exchanged wary glances, then nodded. It was a small victory, but a significant one. For the first time, they were willing to compromise. As the project progressed, the atmosphere aboard the Starweaver began to change. The crew, once skeptical of Alex's role, now regarded them with a newfound respect. Even the Krellians, their massive forms looming in the background, seemed less intimidating. The Kicks, in particular, had taken a liking to Alex, their chittering conversations often punctuated by bursts of laughter. Captain Valen approached Alex one evening as they stood in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "You've done well," she said, her voice carrying a note of genuine admiration. "This project, it's more than just a solution to the conflict. It's a symbol of what's possible when we work together." Alex smiled, though their mind was already racing ahead to the next steps. The energy project was progressing, but the real test would come when it was completed. Would the Lithar and VIN be able to set aside their differences and embrace the new future they were building? Or would old grudges and suspicions tear it all apart? As the Starweaver continued its mission, Alex felt a strange sense of connection, to the crew, to the Lithar and VIN, and to the countless others who were fighting to build a better future. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Alex felt like they were exactly where they were meant to be. The section ends with Alex standing in the observation deck, the stars stretching out before them like a sea of possibilities. The energy project was a beacon of hope, a testament to what could be achieved through cooperation and understanding. But the road ahead was uncertain, and the challenges were far from over. As the Starweaver sailed on, Alex knew one thing for certain. They were ready to face whatever came next.